The richest man in the world made history earlier today. Billionaire, many times over, Jeff Bezos blasted into space in the first crewed flight of his rocket ship, New Shepard, the first flight designed to serve the growing market for space tourism among the super wealthy. It's kind of exciting, right? Not for the libs. Here are reactions to the historic flight from at least some on the left. We have Massachusetts Democrat Representative Catherine Clark tweeting, "You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know it's time for billionaires to pay their fair share." And another one from Democrat Robert Reich, "No one needs Bezos to launch rockets into outer space. We need him to pay his fair share of taxes so people can thrive here on Earth." Here to discuss, founder of Young Americans Against Socialism and a contributor here at the First TV, Morgan Zegers. Morgan, so good to have you back.
Thanks for having me, Buck.
So, I guess the communist impulse or the socialist pull does not go away, even in the midst of space flight. They want to talk about redistributing the wealth. What do you make of all this?
Well, when you look at it like that, in that perspective of, okay, here we go again, the left is trying to create that division between the owning class and the working class. This isn't new to America or to our world. It's a classic tactic of Marxists. What they try and do is split the working class against the owning class, and the workers are going to rise up, right? The workers of the world will unite, and then they will own the means of production and the business. What happens, though, is the socialist government that is put in charge doesn't give the power to the people. Once this revolution takes place, they just become the new government, and it becomes a dictatorship very quickly. So that's the transition we're seeing here, and it's very repeated throughout history. What's happening here, though, listen, I understand why they're frustrated. We just went through a pandemic. We're in a very bad state as a country. The prices of everything are going up. We're really struggling, and so to see this rich guy go to space and pay $2 million at least per minute for a 10-minute trip, it stings a little bit. It does, but this is the difference. For me, I'm like, all right, PR, timing of it, pretty bad. The leftists, though, they say you don't deserve to do that. We need to have control of your money, and you need to give your money to us. So they're more in that sense of being able to control what someone does. For me, I'm just saying, all right, not exactly the best thing I want to be seeing right now coming from a billionaire during a pandemic.
Do you think, though, maybe there'd be a different vibe, a different sentiment from these same Democrats who are outraged about, I mean, Jeff Bezos, I can assure folks, wastes a lot of money on a lot of things that he doesn't need. I'm sure he's got a lot of properties. I think he has a yacht that's hundreds of millions of dollars, which no one really needs these things. But we live in a capitalist country and are trying to make it a capitalist world. Do you think that they would have different feelings if this were some massive government-funded project instead of private sector?
But that's one of the first things I thought of, because what they're doing right now on Twitter is they're listing off everything that could be funded with these $2 million minutes, right? And what I'm thinking of is, do these people not understand how much money is wasted by the federal government on a daily basis or on a per minute basis? It's way bigger than what we're dealing with just Jeff Bezos going for 10 minutes to space. If he wants to do it, he can, because it's his money. But what we should be more frustrated about is that average Americans pay tens of thousands of dollars of taxes every year. It gets added up. The government's given millions of dollars, and we never really solve the problems that the government says they're going to fix. And so I'd be more frustrated about that. And hopefully maybe we can reach people with that frustration and say, you're going to get mad if you hear about these real facts over here. Let me tell you something.
I mean, it is also pretty stunning that they're telling us that if only, Bezos paid his fair share. Right now, there's a budget proposal coursing through the Senate where they're looking to spend $3.5 trillion plus $600 billion. I always like how they separate out some of the infrastructure spending. So that would be over $4 trillion of spending, new spending, that the Democrats want to push forward. You would think that whatever the contribution from Bezos is, wouldn't really put a dent in that, would it?
It wouldn't, and that's what's so scary. And I believe AOC's been challenged on this, and she gives something along the lines of that answer she gives often of, I'd rather be morally right than factually correct. What we're dealing with, though, is a very violent group, okay? They hate rich people. They hate capitalists. They hate average people that just want to have a small business. I mean, it's pretty bad. And I don't know if you saw this. In 2020 especially, they were putting guillotines outside of Jeff Bezos' house. Remember that? They did it at the White House for Trump, but then they also put the guillotines outside of Jeff Bezos' private home, which is very scary. We're dealing with some really radical people here. I would say, though, when we look at the left, there is that trend. I don't know if you've read Rules for Radicals, but it teaches people how to build a successful leftist movement. And one of those lessons is to basically make a mob of people that can get mad about one thing one day and then another thing the next day, and they can always stay mad. Because if you only focus on one issue, the passion kind of dies down after a few years. You got to make a base that can get upset as if the world's going to end over anything. And this is just a great example. I mean, when I found out we were talking about this and that we were going to discuss it on the news, I was like, how is this a subject? And it's because they've made it an outrage in a matter of 24 hours that this guy decided to go to space for 10 minutes.
I mean, isn't the space race something that ever since we're all little kids, right? We hold up the U.S., getting the first man on the moon. And beating the Soviets, and this is a point of great national pride for us. And we think of astronauts as heroes. And I don't know about you, but I've watched some Star Trek here and there, Star Wars, whatever star show happens to be your cup of tea. And it just strikes me that under more normal circumstances, maybe everybody would say, well, this is kind of cool, the beginning of a commercial space aviation industry where people can just, everyday folks, not even astronauts, would be able to at some point, I mean, it's probably very expensive for a long time, but be able to go up to space. It feels like there's not the same sense of celebration of the achievement here. Why?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think of them as fun suckers because they don't think that any funds should go to anything that they don't see supporting their policies in terms of supporting the working class and all of their buzzwords. But this reminds me, have you ever talked to a socialist and they tell you that we have too many private companies in America that make useless products, and they complain about things like how many deodorant brands are in the deodorant aisle at the store and how many hair shampoo options we have when we go to CVS? I hear that and I'm like, are you really complaining about this? Is this your big complaint about capitalism when we have eliminated like 90% of the world's poverty in the last 100 years thanks to economic freedom being implemented in the West and in new countries after one another? That's your complaint, is that there's too many deodorant brands? You don't like that? Yeah. Is that oppressive to you? So I see this as another thing. They're trying to find problems with a system that's incredibly effective, incredibly empowering, and incredibly successful. It achieves actual progress, not regress. So this is something that we're going to continue to see, I think, especially as technology advances, because it requires a lot of money to achieve these advancements in society. We have to acknowledge that, and they're not down with it.
Without capitalism, no oat milk for the libs. So they might as well get with the program. Morgan, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Buck.